We probably
Well,
ought
I've
to
got
go
204. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. So, okay. Hey, everyone. So my name is Morgan Arwood, and I'm the Membership Director for the Midwest Roofing Contractors Association and the staff person assigned to MRCA's Safety Committee. It's no secret that safety should be of utmost importance to roofing companies. Number one, because it literally saves lives, but also because it protects your crews, your clients, and your company. MRCA's Safety Committee wanted to create a roofing-specific safety education geared toward the safety professionals at our member companies. You are the first to participate in this pilot program, and we very much thank you for being here. That being said, we want this certification to help you and many others in the future. Our goal is to build upon this certification each year and to create a robust program that truly provides vital knowledge that will help you in your daily activities, practices, and policies. Today we have MRCA's General Counsel and renowned OSHA defense attorney, Gary Aumann of Aumann, Mahan & Furry, to kick off 2021's education with an explanation of the program, the requirements, and the goals of the SHARP Plus Safety Certification. Side note, you may not be aware, but as an MRCA member, you are entitled to 1 half-hour call with Gary each month. We urge you to utilize this confidential membership benefit to your advantage. Anytime you have a question or need advice, know that Gary is there to help. Real quick, last 2 things before I hand this over to Gary, is that we want your feedback on this program. We need you, as the first participants of the SHARP Plus Safety Certification Program, to help us mold this education into a valuable, even critical component to a roofing company's safety program. If there are any topics that you think we should include, please call it out. Help us develop this program to fit your needs. Last thing, please reach out to me if ever I may be helpful. My contact is in the receipt emails from when you registered and also on our website. I'm here to help. And with that, Gary, I'll hand it to you, and thank you everyone again for being here today. Gary?
Thank you, Morgan. Everything you said was 100% accurate, except that you introduced me as a renowned safety expert. I don't know if I'm renowned at much of anything, but I like to think that I place safety first when dealing with my clients in whatever industry they happen to be. Welcome everybody to this first episode of the MRCA Safety SHARP Plus Safety Certification Program. As Morgan indicated, I'm going to spend a few minutes in the beginning talking about the program, why it's important, and then we're going to roll into the very first thing that the Safety Committee felt should be the first thing we talked about in this program, and that is developing a safety culture. So, all of a sudden, Morgan, I can't advance my slides. Morgan?
Yep, I'm here. There you go. You got it.
It must have been stuck. Okay. All right. So first of all, why do you want to do the SHARP Safety Certification Program? It's pretty simple. First of all, you want to be safe. You want to be known as a safety-conscious roofing contractor. The roofing industry has not a relatively, but somewhat of a tarnished reputation in the United States because of the number of OSHA citations that are issued against roofing contractors, the fact that many roofing contractors have just dug in their heels and refused to even knuckle under or comply with safety after they've been repeatedly cited by OSHA. I read part of my anal personality, I guess you'd say. I read a lot of cases on OSHA and a lot of notifications, and I'm repeatedly reading about roofing contractors around the country that are being cited now recently in the millions of dollars because they just don't get it and won't get it, and continue to put safety on the back burner, continue to have lots of employees who are injured, and therefore continue to get OSHA inspection and significant OSHA citations and penalties. We need to do what we can to change that image. The first way we're going to be able to do that is with you and other members of the MRCA taking this program, getting this SHARP Plus safety certification so that you can hold your head up if an OSHA does come to call and point out to that compliance officer, by the way, I am safety certified under the SHARP Plus safety certification program. I attended, as you can see on the screen right now, 8 credit hours of education, continuing education during the year 2021, actually up to the convention, and obtained enough credit hours and critical safety topics to roofing contractors. I've also completed the safety award application, which is mandatory, and which means that 8 to 10 portions of my safety program have been critically evaluated by safety experts with objectively and consistently with regards to accepted OSHA criteria, and I've been graded on that. I understand, I get it, my company gets it. They would not have put me in this position if they didn't get it. So that's why we want to do it, and there's another why, and it's got nothing necessarily to do with, well, it does have something to do with the safety of your employees, but that is OSHA compliance. We are in a situation right now, since January 20th of this year, we have a new political party running the country. In fact, let's be honest with ourselves. We have a president from the Democratic Party, we have Democratic control of the House, and we have Democratic control by one vote, and that would be the Vice President Harris, who would have the controlling vote over the Senate. President Biden, with this flurry of executive orders he issued January 20th, January 21st, and almost every day since that, is several of those orders have been focusing on workplace safety. He issued an order on January 21st when he pretty much said, my administration is going to be focusing on safety in the workplace. He's telegraphed that move by appointing, now we don't yet have an assistant secretary of labor for OSHA. We don't have an administrative head of OSHA, but we do have a deputy assistant administrator of OSHA. That's, if you think of the Secretary of Labor, the Assistant Secretary of Labor for OSHA, and the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Labor, the third person down, who is Mr. Fredericks, who is, I'm guessing, retired now, from 25 years with the Steelworkers, where he was basically in charge of promoting and dealing with safety and health issues on behalf of the union members and management, and pushing that agenda with federal OSHA, both politically and administratively. So we have an administration that's going to be pushing this, and I project that we will start seeing an enhanced enforcement over what we've seen in the past 4 years. We're going to see a different attitude by OSHA enforcement bodies, and you need to be sure you've got everything in your toolkit as a safety professional for your company that you can use to minimize the impact of OSHA compliance inspections, fines, penalties, citations, the classification citations, etc. So I've already mentioned it briefly. This is what you need to do to qualify. You've already done this, a part of it. You've registered, you paid your fee. We're hoping others will register and pay their fee. They've missed this first opportunity to get a credit hour, but you need to get now 8 credit hours during 2021, up to and through the convention. That can be gotten by either attending 6 webinars, plus you have to do the safety award application, or while I'd like you to attend each webinar, you could do it by attending 2 conference safety sessions at 1.5 hours each, and then attend 3 webinars and do the safety application. I'd love it. I really feel great about this program if you could all do everything. Attend the 6 scheduled webinars, come to conference, attend the 1.5 hour sessions there that are going to be probably a little more meaty than the webinars because they'll be in person, and do the safety award application. I think you owe it to yourself, your company, and the people that work at your company to take safety seriously. I know you do, but to promote safety within your company. So again, the importance of a strong safety culture. Well, number one, it defines the importance of safety in your company. We're at sort of a crossroads with workplace safety. Like I said, we've got an administration that's going to be, for lack of a better term or analogy, cracking the whip with regards to management, pushing us to comply with OSHA. You'll see as I go through this presentation, it's a two-way street in a way. One of the things that I hear from a lot of my clients, at least used frequently, the first thing out of their mouths when they get an OSHA citation is, I don't understand why I've been cited. I don't get it. I've done everything I can possibly do to promote safety with my employees. I give them the best, provide them the best personal protective equipment. I have the best training, and we'll talk about that at the next session, actually next week, a week from today. I provide them the best training possible. I do everything I can possibly do to promote safety in the workplace. And I don't understand why I should get this safety citation. Why should I be fined because one of my employees didn't happen to have his safety harness on when he was working on the roof? Or the safety monitor wasn't paying attention to the employees working outside the warning line? Or my employee wasn't wearing a face shield while he was working on the kettle? Any of these areas. And you ask yourself why? Well, it's probably because when the compliance officer was on the job site, he saw one employee who wasn't wearing his fall protection. He saw one safety monitor who happened to be talking on his or her cell phone. He he just didn't get it. He just saw the one or two mistakes that you made. And therefore, we deal with the defense to that situation, which is what is called the unpreventable employee misconduct offense. And that ties back into the safety culture. The best way to make that defense and make it stick is to have a strong safety culture. So that's one of the reasons why we want to have a strong safety culture. Think about, and people say, well, does OSHA really care about a safety culture? Think back to 2018 in October, I think it was October 11th of 2018, OSHA backed away from a rule that had had in place for only 2 years, or a little bit less than 2 years, where it prohibited youth employers from doing mandatory post-accident drug tests. They pulled that off the table, but they said if you do mandatory post-accident drug tests and you're challenged on that by your employees or by OSHA, we're letting you do it only for those companies who have a strong safety culture. OSHA knows the terminology. They have their own ideas about what a safety culture is, and I'll cover those. I'm going to give you my ideas first, and we're going to cover NIOSH's ideas at the end of the presentation. And then, of course, it's the impact of OSHA on you, on impact on OSHA and your employees. What is OSHA going to think about if they know you've got a strong safety culture, and they're comfortable with the fact that you're doing everything you can do? Quite frankly, gentlemen, ladies, you can talk your way out of OSHA citations. And I think that's still going to be possible, even with the new administration. As long as you can show that you walk the walk and talk the talk and have a strong safety culture and convince a compliance officer or an area director or a judge or an OSHA lawyer, as long as you can convince them that this is what you have, this is what you do, you're going to come out on the plus side when you have an OSHA inspection. OSHA compliance officers do inspections, and they don't always result in citations. There are times that an OSHA compliance officer comes out to a job site and is so impressed by the employer's commitment to safety that he or she makes some suggestions of how the company can improve what they're doing, but says, I'm not going to issue any citations right now because you're making a real effort to get everything right. You have no blatant safety violations. The minor things you have that I could cite you for are really not exposing your employees to dangers or hazards, so they'd be other than serious. So what I'm going to do is I want you to fix these things. And maybe what he or she says is, give me a follow-up report in 30 days to tell me what you've done, and we can walk away from this with a safer company and a safer approach. That again is why it's important to have a strong safety culture. Okay, what is a safety culture? This is OSHA's definition of a safety culture. It consists of I know it sounds a little bit off the wall, but this is what they say. It consists of shared beliefs, attitudes, and practices that exist in an establishment or in a company. Culture is the atmosphere created by those beliefs, attitudes, etc., which shape our behavior, the behavior of your employees. Simply said, safety culture is putting safety first in your company 24/7. That's the simple way of saying this is what a safety culture is. This is how you can have one. And how do you get there? No, we're not winding up the presentation. We're just at the beginning. But how do we get there? Owner management commitment. Many roofing contractor companies have a single owner. Many of my clients are single owner companies. They're incorporated, they're properly legally incorporated, but they're closely held corporations where my client, the owner of the company, started the company, or maybe his father started the company, or his father's father started the company. And through succession planning, each generation has taken over operation after the prior generation has retired. They're family businesses. And many of those family businesses have a tremendous desire to keep people safe, to do a good job, to have a quality product. But sometimes we get a little bit complacent at the ownership level because it's our business. We don't necessarily always feel that we have to be 100% committed to safety. And that commitment means ownership follows its own safety rules. So we need that owner management commitment. So if you're not an owner and you're in this webinar, you need to take this message back to your leadership team, your ownership team, depending on how you're structured, and tell them, you know, one of the things Gary urges to do is get your buy-in. And quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, this comes up in just about every confidential interview I've ever seen or been made aware of in any OSHA inspection that my clients have been involved in. It doesn't necessarily just mean it has to be roofing. It can be residential home building. It can be insulation contractors. It can be mechanical contractors. Any contractor. One of the things when the compliance officer gets around to discussing safety of the company with the employee during that confidential interview, frequently the employees ask, how does management play? How does management play into the safety culture in your company? How is management committed to safety in your company? And I'll tell you, many times the employee, when asked, how did you answer that question? It's well, I really don't know. You know, the owner comes out on a job site, and when I see him or her on the job site, yeah, they seem to be emphasizing safety, but sometimes they're not wearing their fall protection like we have to. Sometimes they're not wearing their personal protective equipment. If it's a hot day, they don't put their hard hat on their head, even though we require that our safety rule says we have to do that. That's demonstrating a lack of commitment by management for safety on the job site, for safety 24/7. Here's what management has to make safe. Here's what you have to make safe. If you're the safety manager, if you're the operations manager, if you're the project engineer or the owner, this is what you need to do. And many of you are probably doing these things, but if you're not, or you're not emphasizing them the way you should, let's talk about them for a minute. And by the way, I think you may have heard Morgan talk about questions. If you have questions, please send them in on your chat box, and we'll cover those at the end of the presentation. I'm going to try allow about 5-7 minutes at the end for questions and answers. And if you have questions I prefer them on safety culture, but if you have other questions on safety, please don't hesitate to chat those in, and we'll do the safety culture questions first, and then we'll follow with others. I know a lot of people have questions with regards to the new guidance on COVID and things like that, and I'll be glad to deal with those. But getting back into the topic. So number one, management needs to make safety integral to everything the company does. That's what I say in this slide. These are actions. It's more than just words. It's more than just saying. It's more than just you saying to everybody, wear your PPE. If you're the safety monitor, pay attention to what's going on inside the warning lines and outside the warning lines. Yes, the safety monitor really in federal OSHA, I'm talking federal OSHA now, the safety monitor only has to worry about employees and paying attention 100% of the time legally when employees are working outside the warning lines. Although the safety monitor has to be aware when somebody walks outside the warning lines. I don't know necessarily how they can do that If they're busy doing something else rather than watching all the employees, how they're going to be sure that all the employees have remained inside the warning lines, especially if we're talking about a fairly large work area. Number two, you have to insist on safety in all aspects of all work areas and activities. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to emphasize this again later. You have to walk the walk. I've said that once already. You have to do that. When you visit one of your job sites and you go up on that roof, you need to make sure the ladder you're using to ascend the roof is properly set. If it's not properly set, you need to ask right then, who set up this ladder? Why isn't it tied off? Why isn't it at a 4-in-1 slope? Why doesn't it extend 36 inches or more above the roof edge, the rake edge of the roof? Why doesn't it? And you need to hold somebody responsible. And if nobody steps forward, then you need to look at your foreman or your superintendent, and it's their fault. It really is their fault anyway, because they're in charge of that job site before you got there. You should not use that ladder to get up on the roof if it's not properly set up. I know we're all in a hurry. It's going to slow down your visit, but it's something you still need to do. And when you finally get ready to get up on that roof, you need to stay in, if it's warning lines and safety monitor set up, you need to stay inside those warning lines from the ladder till you get inside the warning line area. And you need to stay inside that warning line and observe what you can from being inside there. If it's 100% tie-off roof, you better have your harness on when you climb that ladder. And as soon as you get on that roof, you tie off to the anchor point. If you have a rule that says when you get out of your truck at the job site in the morning, the first thing you do is put on your hard hat, you better have your hard hat on. You're not going to convince anybody in your crews, any of your employees, that you believe 100% in safety if you feel this applies to everybody but me. You have to be an active participant in all safety aspects. Number three, you need to promote safety in all aspects of the lives of your employees at home and at work. What do I mean by that? I mean you need to be promoting your safety people. If you're the safety manager for the company, you need to be promoting safety with the families, things that your employees can take home to their families with regards to safety. It can be any type of safety. It's basically what it is you're communicating to your employees. We're concerned about your safety on the job site. That's number one. But we want you to take some of the lessons you're learning home to your families. If there's a requirement that whenever you're working with a hammer, everybody doing that should have on safety glasses. Hey guys, when you go home, if your kids are going to be building anything and they're going to be using hammers and nails, you want to pick up a couple pairs of safety glasses for them to put on and insist that they wear them. It goes into buckling up when you're driving. It goes with not texting while driving. It goes with everything we're training our employees to do or prohibiting them from doing because they're unsafe things. We need to have them taking those things home, and we need to show them we're concerned about them and their families 24/7. And that involves families in your safety culture. When you have a safety day at your company, or maybe at the end of the year, some companies bring all their employees together for not necessarily a safety thing, but for an end of the year thank you to the employees. And maybe if you have safety incentives where you give out safety awards, think about bringing the families, making it a family day, not just an employee day, and involve the families in safety recognition. Or if you have a safety day at any time during the year where you're going to recognize employees that are performing admirably from a safety perspective, you need to involve the families. You're also going to see something coming up on safety enforcement. I really like this, and I have several clients that are doing this, and they've been very successful with it. When they have an employee violate a safety rule, they issue their discipline to the employee, and they send a letter, a mail, snail mail, a letter home to the employee's significant other, the husband or the wife, whichever the significant other is, or the boyfriend or the girlfriend, whoever they're living with, and say, today I issued a written warning to your spouse, whatever, for violating a safety rule for the second time. I want you to understand that we care here at this company about the safety of your significant other, and we want them to get home to you at night in the same condition they were in when they left home this morning to come out to the work site. And you need to understand also that if they have a third safety violation within this calendar year, they've had two, they're going to have 3 days off without pay. And you need to understand that that's going to affect the paycheck that you see and your husband or wife sees at the end of the day. And that letter goes out to that significant other, and all the companies who use that have found amazing results from using that to get employees to not get that third safety violation and start taking a little more safety a little more seriously. Okay, then we want to integrate safety into what we're doing. It needs to be the part of the plan of every project and every bid. What do I mean by that? Well, safety, you can't look at safety as a cost, as an opportunity to eliminate injuries, improve efficiency, instill pride in what they're doing, and for public relations. Not one of you on this call, not any company I can think of, wants to see their name plastered in the headlines of the local newspaper because their employee just fell off the roof and was killed. Or emergency squad called, and we see that here in Dayton, Ohio. We have a metropolitan service area of over 1 million people, and not as big as up in the Cleveland area or Columbus, but it's big enough. No company here wants to see their name in a paper, whether it's on the front of the local news or somewhere later inside the paper, because people pick up and then they read about it. And they read that ABC Roofing Company had an employee killed today is under investigation. And quite frankly, we had a almost an epidemic, not a pandemic, an epidemic of accidents in this geographical area, Southwest Ohio, about 2 or 3 years ago with trench cave-ins. And the news media started getting pretty aggressive in how they reported those cave-ins in the media. And lots of people were talking about the names of the companies who had employees who were killed in trench cave-ins. You don't want to be in that situation. That's your public relations piece. Instilling pride, your employees are all wearing their safety equipment. Make that a prideful thing to do. And of course, improving efficiency. You may disagree with me, but I do think people work more efficiently and more quickly if they don't have to worry about their safety because they are wearing their PPE, they are paying attention to their training, etc. And of course, eliminating injuries is going to bring down your workers' comp premium rates and keep your workers on the job as opposed to being home recovering from an injury. So we need to have our employees think about safety before they undertake any task or job. One of the things I emphasize, and we as your MRCA members, and you just saw me when I talked about what it takes to participate in the safety certification program, and I'm not sure we'll ask this question this year, but part of that is the Safety Recognition Award Program. One of the questions we frequently ask ties into safety hazard recognition. And most everybody says, well, we train our employees about the hazards that exist in the kind of work they do. In roofing, we train our employees on roofing hazards in working on a roof and working at heights. But do we train our employees with regards to hazards that other trades might bring to the job site where we're working? An HVAC contractor that comes to a roof that we're working on and brings his or their own crew to that job site, who may not be trained safely, and they may engage in activities or actions that are not necessarily as safe as we would like our employees to be. And having our employees identify those hazardous situations and take steps to avoid the hazards created by someone else. It's paying attention to what you're doing on every job 100% of the time. It's making everyone on every job be a competent person. And I'm talking about the OSHA definition of a competent person, which is found in the OSHA standards, 1926, I always get this wrong, point 20 or point 21, B2. Having a competent person make regular and frequent visits to the job site. OSHA says you need to have somebody at least be there in the morning, in the afternoon, on a frequent and regular basis. Most contractors that I work with anymore make sure their foreman is a competent person. And that's a person who's aware of the OSHA standards that govern the kind of work they're supervising and doing. They have the ability to recognize hazardous situations that might crop up on the job site, and the independent authority to take corrective action to protect employees from those hazardous situations. What I'm saying is, every employee in your job site, if they are trained in hazard recognition, and if they are prohibited from doing anything that I call distracted working, that is, they're not walking around the roof, they're sending a text message to their wife or girlfriend or husband or boyfriend, that phone is not even on the roof with them. They're not walking around talking on the phone, not paying attention to where they are or what they're doing. They're paying attention to that job. They're tuned into what's happening on that job site. They're tuned into the sounds of the job site, the sights of the job site. And if those sounds or sights change, they recognize something new has been added to the job site. They know to take a minute to find out, is that a hazardous situation? So that's part of that safety culture. Hazard recognition training beyond the usual expected hazards, but to be 100% tuned in to what's going on in that job site all the time. So you pick up on changes that indicate a new hazard has entered the environment. Moving on to the next slide here, we talk about job planning. And job planning means do a project hazard analysis when preparing the bid. Once again, depending on how you're structured, you as a safety person, safety director, might wear many different hats. If you're a larger contractor, perhaps you may have a safety director in charge of safety, every aspect of safety in your job. That individual, whether it's the person wearing many hats or the person with one hat, should be included in the bid process. When you're getting ready to bid a job, you should bring that person in, let them know what you're looking at, what you're considering doing, and ask and say, okay, how do you plan to staff this job site from a safety standpoint? Do we plan to do 100% tie-off? Are we going to do safety warning lines and safety monitors? Are we going to rely on parapets for safety? Or are we going to add an extra 12 inches of guardrail on top of the parapet to get the required minimum 39 inches? Are we going to install guardrails, whether it's a running steel guardrail that goes around the roof or whatever? How do you suggest that we best protect the employees on this roof? And tell me I want you to come back to me this afternoon with a cost for that. I want to know how much that's going to cost me. And if it's options, I want to know what the options are. Having a full-time employee do nothing but standing inside warning lines, watching everybody else working around them, paying them if it's a union job, union scale, or if it's not, paying them the same as every other journeyman roofer I've got on the roof. Is that going to be a more expensive way to provide safety than it would be to bring a Raptor card up there, have everybody do 100% tie off? I've already got the Raptor cards. Just have one put on the roof, have everybody tie off to that Raptor card and do 100% tie off. And maybe still do warning lines, but I may not need a safety monitor if people are 100% tied off whenever they're on the roof. Would that be less expensive? What are the different cost factors? And how will that affect efficiency? Maybe your safety person doesn't tell you that. Perhaps that's where you bring the project engineering and says, well, because of the nature of this roof, the structure of this roof, the various elevations, etc., Raptor cart may not be the best idea possible. Or because we have lots of different elevation levels of the roofs, perhaps we're going to have different places where people are going to have fall protection, things like that. And we have to move that Raptor cart around from level to level. Maybe that's not going to be the best way. I bring that person in and have that discussion. When you finally decide, then work the cost of that into your bid. You don't want safety to come as a surprise when your safety director comes to you and says, hey, Joe, Mr. Jones, we're going to have to bring a Raptor cart up there and do 100% tie-off because of the way this roof is set up, or whatever. We've got lots of skylights. We need to cover all the skylights out inside the warning lines where everybody's working. And they have to know they're not allowed to go outside the warning lines where there's any skylights that are not guarded. All those sorts of things, but make that cost projection part of your bid so you don't have a surprise with regards to safety halfway through the job and then have to start making a decision because that's going to significantly impact your profits, et cetera. Now, I recognize that many of you are saying, yeah, but what Gary is saying is fine, but if I put safety in my bid, I'm not going to get the project. Well, you need to, those are things you need to consider, and that may be where you sell safety to your customer as a better way of bidding, letting the job go. Safety program, you need that. You need a detailed safety program. The MRCA Safety Committee is getting ready to roll out, and they will roll it out probably before the convention this fall, a safety manual template. If you don't have an idea of how to put together a safety program, you need to get a copy of that safety manual template, because it will permit you, give you the guidelines you need to develop your safety program. It's not intended for you to take it and just put your company name on it. A safety program has to be personal to your company. It needs to be thorough, but it needs to be personal to your company. It needs to cover every aspect of what you do. But this safety manual template will provide you that kind of guidance. But a couple of other points that are important to consider. Should we do stretching at the start of every day? Many companies in construction especially have started swearing by stretching. We've reduced, some of them will tell you we've reduced the number of back injuries, sprains and strains by stretching at the beginning of the day. I'm a little more skeptical than many are, but I won't want to stand in anybody's way. If stretching is a good way you think to start the day from a safety perspective, it sells safety to your employees, and by all means, stretch. A safety walk around before any work performs each day. I'm an advocate of having the site foreman, whoever the site supervisor is going to be, get to the job site 15 minutes before the rest of the crew. Have that person walk the job site, check out where they're going to be working, what safety safeguards they're going to be using, and then pull everybody together when they get there and having that kick off the day, cup of coffee, either when the hour hand or the minute hand gets to the 12 and the hour hands at 6:30 or 7 a.m. whenever you're starting. Take that first 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, have that supervisor and say, okay, guys, I've walked the site. Here's what we need to be concerned about for the day today. And don't forget, 1926.502A1 requires you to determine the integrity of the walking and working surfaces, and that should be done on a daily basis. It definitely needs to be done before work ever begins on the job site, and it should be done every time the structure or integrity of the roof is affected by any work you do on it. And that's something else that should be done at the beginning of the day, so that you're sure you don't have any weak spots in the roof. You don't have to worry about one of your employees falling through that weak spot. And yes, you have to worry about that even if they're wearing a harness. Because even if they're wearing a harness and you have a weak spot and they fall through it and they're serious enough injured, you got to report it to OSHA, or it makes the media and OSHA finds out about it, and they come out and they find out they fell to a weak spot roof. They're going to cite you under that standard because you didn't determine the integrity before you put anybody up on that roof. So the first thing is that job briefing where the foreman, site supervisor identifies hazards, what's going to happen today, here's what you may be faced with. Weekly toolbox talk are important, emphasizing particular topics. I suggest in our business, we emphasize fall protection at least every 4, 5, or 6 weeks. So the toolbox talk should be focused on fall protection. It can be different types of fall protection. It could be fall protection. In the summer, every 4 weeks or 5 weeks, we should be doing one on heat illness prevention. In the winter, cold illness prevention. And then fill in the rest with other safety toolbox talks. And then safety audits should be had by the site supervisor, or if you're a small contractor and you have 1 or 2 jobs going on every day, on any given day, your safety director might do them. At least twice a day, unannounced and random. Checking out to make sure employees are wearing their PPE and abiding by all safety rules. At the beginning, number one, you have to safety orient your people. You do safety orientation at the very beginning. You hire me, nobody wants to hire me to get up on a roof, but you hire me, you're going to sit me down and go through safety orientation. Here are the key points of that for a good safety culture. Interactive with real people making the presentation. Demonstrate the use of PPE. Demonstrate the right way to wear a hard hat. Demonstrate how to get in and out of a safety full body harness, and then make sure the harness you assign to me fits me, and make sure I know how to put it on, get it tightly cinched, and wear it properly. Cover all safety topics. Test every employee. It's got to be a pass-fail test, and any employee who doesn't pass that pass-fail test does not go out on the job site. And they need to understand that. They need to know they're not going out on the job site if they don't pass safety orientation. Either they have to repeat safety orientation again. I have some clients that safety oriented employees, and they get one chance to fail it, they retake it. If they fail it the second time, they're not hired. Some of them give them two chances, but they recognize that these employees are so cavalier about safety, they don't want them on their job site because they're either an accident waiting to happen or they're going to cause somebody else to have an accident and get hurt. You're going to communicate your safety culture and your management commitment to safety to all the employees. I love the companies that do safety mentors. You don't have to sign a mentor for 6 months in roofing, maybe a week, a month, 2 weeks, whatever. But you're going to have somebody work with that. They're going to work right next to that new employee and point out, as the Marines say, the rocks and shoals of working on a roof and maybe in different types of safety situations. Hazard identification training, like I said, hazard recognition, and involvement of employees in safety and why you consider that so important. And what your employee involvement is, get everyone at every level to think safety before they undertake any task or job. As I mentioned before, everyone on every job has to be a competent person. We said that before. This is how I'm serious I am about it. You're doing yourself a disservice if you do not make sure everybody could be. You're only going to have one competent person that's going to be identified. It's going to be the competent person. If OSHA shows up and says, who's the competent person? It's him. You can point at one person, it's Pete over there. But everybody should be able to qualify to have that role if necessary. Management commitment. Management uses all required PPE whenever visiting a job site. I've already mentioned that. Management adopts stricter safety standards for itself and encourages everybody to follow those strict safety standards. And this is 100% of the time, those of you who are on this call who are owners or senior management, you have to do this every time. The first time you show up on a job site and don't tie off and go up on that roof and don't tie off and everybody else is in a harness and tied off, they're going to wonder, wait a minute, why isn't he tied off? Don't use the excuse, I'm only going to be up here for a minute or 30 seconds. I defended an OSHA case where we got cited, my client got cited because the foreman was up on the roof, the check flashing at one part of the roof. He was up there for he told me, I was up there for no more than a minute. I didn't think I needed to tie off. Bingo. Now, think of what the other employees think when they see that person. And now I got an OSHA citation. This is what happened. But if no OSHA citation occurs with that visit and nobody gets hurt, but they see that exception, then they wonder, well, if he can do it, why can't I do it? Why should I always have to hook off and tie off when I go up there if the foreman doesn't have to do it, or if the superintendent or the project engineer or project manager doesn't have to do it, or the owner doesn't have to do it? Why should I have to do it? Management has to participate in training, and I mean all management, including you, the owner. At some point, you need to show your face, at least in safety orientation. I love it when I have clients who say, yes, the owner of the company attends every session of safety orientation. Now, if you're a huge corporation and you have many branches spread around the region, the MRCA region, or around the country, yes, I understand you can't, every time you bring in 5 new employees, you can't necessarily fly the president of the company out to sit in on safety orientation. But when that person, if they do get out and visit job sites, they need to introduce themselves to the employees. And again, they need to be complying with all safety rules. You need an enforcement program to have a strong safety culture. I can't tell you how many companies they shy away from this. They don't like the idea of having to have a safety disciplinary program because it means at some point, if they're effectively using it consistently and objectively, they're going to have to terminate somebody for violating a safety rule. And that may be the case, but you need a safety enforcement program that follows these principles. Progressive discipline, more strict for supervisors, whether you have a 4-step program for your employees, verbal warning, written warning, 3 days off, termination, supervisors, or maybe written warning, 3 days off, termination. Objectively enforced, you can't play favorites. You have to be consistent also in the way you do it. You always retrain following all disciplinary levels except termination costs, and design enforcement to maintain a safe work site. So I'm not suggesting that you all have to do a 4-step program all the time. Design your program to work for you. but design it so that your goal is to have a safe work site. That should be you as a safety manager or director. That should be your goal when you set up your safety enforcement program. Maybe a 5-step or a 6-step program works for you. Maybe a program where you remind a person several times. You say, look, I'll give if guy's not has his hard hat off, I'll give him 3 or 4 tries, especially if it's off and it's real hot and it's uncomfortable. I'll give him 3 or 4 warnings before I pull the trigger on the first level. But have that all documented and then consistently stick with it. Don't show favorites. That third bullet, no favorites. No matter how good an employee is, he's not that good that he should be able to skate through and work unsafely over and over again, because sooner or later, either he's going to cause somebody else to get hurt, or he's going to be hurt and maybe seriously hurt. And you're going to wish at that point, and I've had more than one of my clients tell me this, I should have terminated that employee when I had the chance last year, when I kept stringing them along and letting them stay out there and continue to violate safety rules. You need a drug-free and alcohol-free workplace. Can't tolerate drugs or alcohol on any work site. I think the program should be enforced the same for either drugs or alcohol. I just graded a safety application for another one of my trade associations where the employer gave a person 3 opportunities to show up drunk at work, but only 1 time to show up high. If they tested positive for marijuana 1 time, bingo, they were out the door. But they got 3 shots. They got to show up 3 times and have a blood alcohol level in the intoxicated level and get 3 warnings. I don't understand that. I really don't. Should be the same, consistent again, and severe consequences for positive test, either termination or they have to enter an employee rehabilitation program, and then upon successful completion, they come back to the job and sign a last chance agreement. Extras, safety incentive programs, they're great. Peer recognition is great. People like to be recognized in front of their peers by the owner of the company at the annual safety meeting or whatever. Safety incentives are great, but once again, they are an addition. They're not in place of a safety enforcement program. Okay, now the next slides, I'm just going to roll through these quickly because I'm at the end of my time, and I think Morgan's going to make copies of these slides available to you. This is NIOSH's idea of a safety culture climate workshop. This is from the Center of Construction Research and Training, which is the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health. They're a division of the Department of Labor. This is their concept of what a safety culture should look like. Number 1, it demonstrates management commitment. Number 2, you align and integrate safety as a value in the company. You can see the points there. All meetings include safety. I don't care if it's a meeting where all managers are gathered around the table to talk about profit and loss. Safety needs to be discussed at that meeting. The safety director should be there talking about your record on safety. Regular company-wide safety communications ongoing. Accountability at all levels. It's pretty much is what I've been saying. Every level has accountability, from the owner of the company down to the guy that's doing nothing but taking tear off and taking it over and throwing it down the chute at the edge of the roof. Improving supervisory leadership. Your supervisors should not be supervisors if they're not willing to supervise safety. They need to be supervising safety. They need to be thinking safety. They need to be complying with safety themselves. If they're working unsafe, and if they're not making sure the people who work for them are working safely, I don't care how good a supervisor they are at getting the job done, at quality, efficiency, cost, whatever, they shouldn't be a supervisor. If they don't think safety, if you want to have a real safety culture, if they don't walk the walk, they shouldn't be a supervisor. Empowering and involving your workers. I've got mixed reactions to this. This is NIOSH. Safety meetings and walkarounds, problem solving, safety of value demonstrated across. I can live with that, but once again, be sure that if you're going to do number 5, you also do number 6, and that's improved communications. Going back to number 5 quickly, when you ask employees to identify safety issues and bring them to you, which is a great idea, you've got to be sure that you provide timely feedback to those employees with regards to their suggestions. You don't have employees bring you suggestions and then be too busy to consider them and get back to them on those suggestions. If you have employees bring you suggestions, you need to be able to get back to those employees right now. You need to take those seriously. You need to consider them. If you're the safety manager, it's going to be a cost factor. You need to take them back to the owner of the company and say, hey, look, I got this suggestion. I think it's a good one. I need to get back to the employees who made the suggestion. The employee made the suggestion. And even though employee Gary Allman made the suggestion, I can guarantee you the rest of Gary's crew probably knows about that suggestion because they've probably all talked about it. And you need to let Gary know you're taking him seriously, his suggestion seriously, and you need to tell him why or why not you're going to follow it. If you're going to take him, you need to deal with him, you need to communicate. Training at all levels, everybody needs to be trained. Safety supervisor certification program, which is what we're doing right now, only we're doing it at this level, but all your safety supervisors should get certificated with regards to safety. Your training programs are ongoing, not one-shot affairs. We'll talk about that next week when I talk to you, do the next webinar on training and documenting training. And field people are an integral part in identifying training needs. Encourage the owner-client involvement, and that is involvement by the owner and the customer. That's the client, the customer. All contractors should be, you want to educate your owner, and especially if you do repeat work for the same company, try to educate them that's important that they consider safety when they are letting contracts. You need to pay attention to ISNet World, pre-quals, things like that, but you need to go beyond that. Who knows why that OSHA citation occurred? Who knows why that happened? A company should not rise or fail on that. Did they learn from that experience and did they correct the problem? Was it because there wasn't safety enforcement or safety inspections or safety audits? Have they fixed it? You need to look deeper than that. You need to look at the quality of their safety culture. That's what you should be looking at when you're using that to be part of letting a contract, and it should be part of that. And then you, the owner of the company, should be involved in employee orientation, like I said, whenever possible. And you should design safety into every project. And with that, I'm finished, Morgan. So do we have any questions? I know that went fast, but there's a lot of material.
Yes, Gary, thank you so much. Dermot asks, well, he states, Milwaukee OSHA issued citation for snow removal work last week. The contractor had the contractor had flags at 6 feet. OSHA said it is not roofing work, so it has to be 100% tie off. Is there a generic response for this situation?
Well, first of all, it's not roofing work, even though you're a roofing contractor doing it. I just defended a client of mine, well, actually I defended him 7 months ago, up in northern Wisconsin, as a matter of fact. This was up in the Manitaqua area, I think that's what it's called, way up north. I had a client who had employees up on a roof and they were pushing snow off the roof and they weren't tied off. And the client had built warning lines around the roof. And they even had somebody standing there watching employees, and OSHA's perspective is we're concerned about safety. A warning line is not the best way to protect employees who are pushing snow off a roof, because that roof underneath the snow is going to be slippery. And if it even has a slight slope, a 1 in 12 slope to it, an employee slips on that could slide off the roof. That's the OSHA perspective. Now, I was able to negotiate a pretty good, we got out of the fall protection violation there. We negotiated a training violation, which my client could accept. And, but my client recognized the fact that employees were going to have to be tied off unless they had some alternative methods of taking care of that problem. But that's where OSHA's coming from there. They're looking at this as saying, this is not roofing work, and it's not. You're not installing, you're not doing a tear-off and installation. You're pushing snow off a roof, which means you're going to get fairly close to the edge of that roof as you're pushing it off the roof. Now, I've seen some videos of techniques people use. I'm not sure how effective they are, where they actually have a device up on the roof and they pull the snow off the roof down and they stay off to the side and are able to slide the snow off the roof. But what they're doing, what OSHA's looking at here is, it's not roofing work. But now there is another response. Just because it's not roofing work doesn't necessarily mean it automatically requires personal fall arrest equipment, because I have many clients in other areas of construction who work at heights and do not have 100% tile. You can use warning lines and safety monitors even though you're not doing roofing work. But you need to think through this. From OSHA's perspective, you're unsafe. And I don't want you to get cited for a general duty clause, which might be the next step. Because a general duty clause, you cannot negotiate down to another than serious that can adversely affect you on pre-quals or ISNet world. But the general duty clause is always going to be a serious or greater, because general duty clause, provide plates employing free recognized hazards causing or likely to cause death or serious physical harm. So by definition, it has to be at least a serious violation. So we want to, I don't want you to get in a situation where you suggest something that says, okay, well, we would have taken this down to another than serious, but if you don't take that approach, we're going to cite you under general duty clause because you're not doing roofing work and your employees are exposed to recognized hazards. They're working 20 or 30 feet above the ground. There's no fall protection whatsoever. There's no guardrail, no parapet, no nothing to keep them from just slipping and sliding right off that roof. That's pretty much their way to look at it. That's all I can help you out with on that one at this point.
He expanded on it. He says the project here had parapets, but not high enough for compliance. OSHA suggested a hard barricade or 100% tie-off with a raptor or an anchor point.
Okay, I'd have to be a little more familiar with the parapet. I would argue with OSHA that because my men are not, or my employees are not working at the edge of the roof, I'm guessing they're pushing the snow to the edge of the roof. I'm not sure how they're getting it off the roof with the parapet there, but you're not dealing with the same kind of situation. That parapet's going to protect an employee's working at the edge of the roof. That's why it's got to be at least 39 inches high. But I would argue this doesn't have to be that high, and I'm not sure what how high this parapet was that OSHA considered it wasn't high enough. I don't have 100% facts here, but I don't necessarily think it has to be 39 inches high. I'm not suggesting you enter into this area because you still are going to be confronted by OSHA issuing a citation. Again, recognizing the fact that even if you have a lower parapet, they're going to say now it's a tripping hazard. As that employee is sliding, they could catch their foot on the parapet and go head over heels over the parapet and down to the ground. So you got to look at this from that perspective. I think a hard barricade's a little bit much when you're just up there clearing snow load. But so I think 100% tie-off may be a little bit much also. But this lends itself a little bit towards installing permanent tie-off points on roofs, which some contractors do in certain areas. And I know they do this way up north. I know they do this in Minnesota. I've got a couple clients that, because they do this every winter, they've actually gotten to the point where they install anchor points on the roof. When their employees go up to clear snow loads, they go up the ladder, they walk over the anchor point. They don't have to be tied off 100% of the time until they get there, then they tie off and then they remove it. That's how they approach the situation, by putting that permanent anchor point there.
Fantastic, Gary. Thank you. Well, with that, we're running out of time. Dermot, if you have follow-up questions, feel free to utilize that that legal benefit you have with Gary, or you can, funnel any questions through me. Housekeeping, our next meeting will be next Tuesday, February 16th at the same time, which is 2 p.m. Eastern and 1 p.m. Central. And the topic will be best practices for training documentation. Very important. We understand that as safety professionals at your company, your schedules are at the mercy of incidents. So we will be recording all of our webinars and sessions and our sessions at conference for you to view post-recording and still get credit for certification. So in the event that happens to you, reach out to me and we will get you a link. Don't forget, if you have any questions or topics that should be included in this program, please let us know. My email is listed at our website, which is www.mrca.org. Again, thanks everyone for attending, and we'll see you next week.
Morgan, before we hang up here quickly, Dermot, if you're
Sure.
still on the phone, Dermot, one of the things that's important on our legal services plan, if you call me with a question, nobody knows you called me. Even though you talked to Morgan today, if you call me today or tomorrow and say I got an OSHA citation and how should I best handle it, I'll have you send me a copy of the citation. I'll advise you. Nobody will know that I talked to you, that you had an OSHA citation or anything like that. My time is paid by the association. All they know is I report that I've had a legal services plan called by a member, and they trust me, and I should be trusted because I usually underbill those. But that's all the information that's shared. They don't know who made the call. So you are 100% protected. It's 100% confidential. Sorry, Morgan, I just wanted to get it out there.
No, you're fantastic. That's an excellent point. Yes, all of the calls are confidential. Nobody knows except you and Gary.
Right.
So,
Okay.
okay, everyone. Well, thank you so much. Stephen, I see your question about getting you a copy of the presentation. We will absolutely send out a link to this presentation along with the PowerPoint. And I look forward to seeing you all again next week. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Bye, Morgan.
Bye, Gary. Thanks again.
Bye-bye, kiddo.